Well, good morning. Captain Dolifka here from Ninth Cavalry, Company K, with the Buffalo Soldiers. This morning, we're talking about the Buffalo Soldiers and the officers that commanded them. You ever heard of the Buffalo Soldiers? You're right. Those are the first professional African-American soldiers in the United States Army. And they got their name from the Native Americans. The Native Americans had never seen the black man in the white man's blue uniform. And they looked at their dark skin, and they looked at their dark, fiery eyes, and they looked at their woolly hair, and they also saw that these men fought brave and fierce, just like the mighty buffalo that roams the great plains of Texas and the rest of the United States. So they got that name as a term of respect by those Native Americans. So knowing that description of these Buffalo Soldiers, do I fit that description? Am I a Buffalo Soldier? Now I see a lot of you right there saying, shaking your head no, and some of you saying yes. Well, in my humble opinion, these officers that served with these men are just as much as the Buffalo Soldier as those black soldiers were. I ate the same food as them. I slept on the same hard ground. I put in the same hours in the saddle and the same blood, sweat, and tears fighting Native Americans and doing different projects like building roads and telegraphs. I was right there with them, side by side. So, in my opinion, most of those men, not all of them, the good ones, they're worthy of that term of respect as being called a Buffalo Soldier. But it was my job as an officer to teach my men how to be good soldiers and make sure that they had their uniforms, make sure that they had all the supplies that they needed to be good soldiers, and also the skills to do that. One of the jobs we had to do was to build roads and telegraph lines and make maps. But before we can do any of that type of work, we have to teach them how to ride horse well and how to get the basics of an education. Now the chaplain, they're in charge of education, but there's only one chaplain. And when the Ninth Cav came here to Texas, there was over 800 men in the Ninth Cav. And after they finished their basic training at San Pedro Springs and San Antonio, they were dispersed all across Texas to different forts. All the way out to Alpine in West Texas and Fort Brown in Brownsville, all the way up into the upper hill country, all across Texas. How does one man travel all around Texas and teach over 800 men how to read and write? It doesn't work, does it? So the chaplain, he's more like the principal of a school. He's in charge of the education, but who do you think actually does the teaching? The officers do, the lieutenants. So when I was a lieutenant, one of my jobs, after we got done soldiering and training in different things, at the end of the day, sit down, have dinner, and now it's my job to sit down with my men and teach them how to read and write and do their numbers. Does the teacher of your school teach everybody? No, they have smaller groups of students, just like the officers have smaller groups of men that they work with day in, day out. You get to know your teachers pretty well, don't you? So do the officers. They got to know their men very, very well. Now, that's a key thing when you talk about the desertion rate of these Buffalo Soldiers. The Buffalo Soldiers had the lowest desertion rate of the entire Army, and that was because those officers took time to get to know their men, work with their men, take care of their men, and there was a bond formed there that started when they were getting that education. So now, after we've done that, we can move on to more things like building telegraph lines, building roads, making maps. Some of the tools used for doing that: a surveyor's compass and a sextant. That requires a lot of math to be able to use these tools. It was the officer's job to also teach those men how to do that. So not only did I command the Buffalo Soldiers, but I also had a group of Indian scouts that served under me. Now, why do you think I had Indian scouts that served with us? Well, one of our jobs, our main job originally, according to the Army, was to go out west and move the Native Americans off their land. Now, was that very fair for us to go and do that to those natives? No, you're right. That's a horrible job. But do you think they liked doing it, these men? No. Do you like doing your homework? Do you like doing your chores? I hear a lot of no's in there. Well, just like you have mom and dad and grandparents and teachers and everybody telling you, you got to do your homework, you got to do your chores. Well, these soldiers, they had commanders, they had generals and politicians in Washington all telling us that was your job, to move these Native Americans off their land. So like it or not, that was the reality of the situation. Now, Texas is a big place, ain't it? We figured out real quick, we needed help. Who better to help us track an Indian but another Indian, right? Those Native Americans knew this land better than we did. The tribes that we were after in Texas, do you know who they were? You ever heard of the Comanches, the Kiowas, the Kickapoo, and the Mescalero Apache? Those are the 4 main tribes that the Buffalo Soldiers were told to move off their land. Well, we found out real quick, they know this land better than we do. So who better to help you track an Indian but other Indians that know the land too? We asked in tribes that didn't like those men, those other tribes. We asked the Tonkawa, the Tigwa, and the Lipan Apache. Those 3 tribes are native to Texas, and they did not get along well with the Comanches. So they said yes, they will help us go after them. There was also a group called the Black Seminoles. You ever heard of the Black Seminoles? If you said the Seminoles were from Florida, you were right. And how did they get Black Seminoles though? See, a long time ago, there was runaway slaves from Georgia and the Carolinas, and they went to Florida for freedom because Florida was owned by Spain, which meant it was safe for them. So by them going down there for their freedom, they ran into the Seminoles, the Creeks, and many other tribes. Some of them intermarried. A lot of times they just became part of that tribe, but lived their own separate lives. But they took on those customs and they learned the ways of the Native Americans and became Black Seminoles, Black Creeks. Those tribes then had their own Trail of Tears because we took Florida from Spain, and they, after a 30-year war, they got sent to Oklahoma or Indian Territory. Well, down out there, they're being confused as runaway slaves because this is in the 1850s, and this is still Texas and Arkansas and everybody around was slave states. And so they didn't like that situation, so they petitioned Mexico, and down in Mexico, they got rights. They got their citizenship. They were free. So they went down there. Well, Mexico asked them to be the border patrol against the Comanches, Kiowas, Kickapoos, and Apaches because they didn't stop at borders. They would raid wherever they wanted to go. So they became very skilled at fighting Comanches. And the Army found out, and in the 1870s asked them to come here to Texas because some of them were wanting to return and see their families that were in Indian Territory. So that's how we have Black Seminole Scouts along with the Tonkawa, Tigwa, and Lipan Apaches. Now, like I said, they know this land better than we do. We were lucky to see them, let alone catch them. So those Native Americans, scouts, they taught us how to live off the land, how to find food, shelter, water, and medicine when Army rations ran out. But they also taught us how to get to our quarry. Now, chasing Indians was like a giant game of tag. Now, be honest for me, do you always catch your opponents when you play tag? I didn't think so. And when you play hide and go seek, do you give away good hiding places? No. That's silly if you do that, because then you lose. So those Native Americans, like I said, we were lucky to see them, let alone catch them. Now, those Indian scouts taught us how to look for signs that Native Americans were around. So what are these? If you said moccasins, you're right. These are Native American shoes. Now, are they the same? No. They're shaped different, they're decorated different, and their footprint is different. Every single tribe had their own unique way they made their moccasins. It was like every tribe owned their own brand of shoe. You would know what the footprint of your friends were. You would know the footprint of your allies and your own people, and you would definitely know the footprint of your enemies. Sometimes, though, they were sneaky. When you walk, what happens to your footprints with these moccasins? They drag, they wipe away your footprints. So a good Indian scout could tell that somebody was there, you just don't know who. And that puts the whole group of soldiers and scouts on alert. The other thing they taught us to look for were these. What are these? These are arrows. One is for war, one is for hunting. Which is which? I hear votes for both. So if you said war for the stone arrowhead, you were right. If you said hunting for the metal arrowhead, you were right. Now, there's a way to tell these two apart, though, beyond the tips. But first, metal arrowheads were hard to get. They were precious because this is a cleaner kill, and for using on hunting arrows, you get these arrows back. So that's keeping them in play, feeding your family. This arrowhead with the rock, it's more jagged, it's going to hurt more going in and coming out, and they wanted their enemies to suffer, and they weren't worried about getting this arrow back. But now you jump ahead a few years and everybody's using metal arrowheads for both. So now you have to know how an arrow is made. The way to tell for sure was to hold it like you would shoot it, knock it into the bowstring just like that, and then look at that arrowhead. Is it flat or is it sideways? Or going up and down or going sideways? It's going sideways. Now everybody feel your ribs for me. Feel your ribs. Yeah, which way do they go? They go sideways. This arrow is designed to slip between your ribs. That's how you know for sure it was a war arrow. Now we knock this arrow back and we pretend like we would shoot it. Lock it up into the bowstring, just like that. And then look at that arrowhead. It goes which way? Up and down. So imagine you're a buffalo. You're out in the field. You're standing on how many legs? 4. Which way do your ribs go now? Up and down. So this arrow is designed to slip between the ribs of a buffalo or a deer. Some arrows would also have decoration on them. This arrow, the war arrow, a Tonkel war arrow, might have been painted blue. Comanches might have had a snake painted on them. It was like a calling card. They wanted to know who it was that got you. Hunting arrows always had family markings on the back end. The men would go out to hunt. The families would then follow to harvest what was hunted. You needed to know which buffalo or deer your dad or your husband had shot. So that was how you knew that this was your family's kill. So by knowing these differences in these arrows, those Indian scouts could tell us whether it was a war party looking for trouble or a hunting party in the wrong place, wrong time when we investigated events like wagon trains being attacked or a rancher being attacked. Now, so what is this? This is a bow, right? This is a Comanche-style longbow. Now, it's not as long as you would imagine, is it? The Comanches rode horses. They were the masters of riding horses, and also called the lords of the plains because of how good they rode horses. They didn't need a 6-7 foot long bow like in England and the East Coast did because of their riding horseback. You needed to shoot over the head of the horse. They were so good at riding a horse and shooting and fighting on horseback that they could fire an arrow up to 200 yards with this bow. That's 2 football fields. Do you think you could do that? I didn't think so. I probably couldn't either. They're that good. It's made out of bodark or Osage orange. That's the hardest wood in North America. And it has a natural curve in the wood, and that's perfect for making bows. The Caddo people took good care of the trees and would trade, and were known for being a supplier of bodark or Osage orange to the natives for making these bows. Now, is it brave, though, for me to shoot you from way far away? No, it's not. Not with a rifle, not with a bow and arrow. Brave was hand-to-hand combat. Brave was being able to jump off your horse, race across the battlefield, and smack your enemy, and get away. It's kind of like tag, a very violent form of tag. Now, the French called it counting coup. Coup means to hit or to strike in French. And it wasn't about killing your enemy, but just hurting them and shaming them. And this was an act of bravery that these men would do in battle. Now, when they did such feats like that, they would earn something. What did they earn? Not money, not horses. Feathers. Eagle feathers. By doing an act of bravery like that, whether it was being able to run across your battlefield and touch your enemy and get away, or smack your enemy and get away, or even just sneaking up into the giant top of a tree and stealing an eagle feather out of an eagle's nest, that was another feat of bravery. And for doing that, they could earn 1 feather. This is the type of headdress they might have worn for wearing 1 or 2 feathers. It's a porky roach. It's got porcupine hair and deer hair, and they would wear that and put their eagle feather on display. Now, once you got 30 eagle feathers, you could wear this headdress. This is 36 eagle feathers. Now, you are young warriors. You're trying to earn your first feather. Who would you have better odds against, Mr. 1 feather or Mr. 36 feathers? Mr. 1 feather. You're crazy if you're going to go after this guy, I think, because this shows how good of a warrior he is. This is his war record. So I think you better try him first. But who would you elect as chief? This guy. He's got experience, doesn't he? This guy, not so much. But wait, what about that guy? Oh, you want to see that one up close. This warrior counted coup 90 times. Would you mess with him? No, I wouldn't either. He earned every single one of their feathers, those feathers. Do you think he would actually wear these into battle? No? Why not? Too hard to move around? They would. They really would wear these headdresses into battle, because this is an intimidation factor. This shows off how good of a warrior he is. He's telling you not to mess with him and with all this strength, all this experience. And he's probably a chief, but he was elected chief. So he steps down, he's not chief anymore. This guy gets elected chief. He probably has more feathers. Does the old chief give the new chief his headdress? No, they did not. You had to earn your own feathers. And so these are warriors' headdresses, not necessarily chiefs' headdresses. Now look back here, what's hanging off off the feathers? Hair. What kind of hair? Well, modern day it's horse hair. In the olden days, it was ladies' hair. When a warrior died in battle, his wife would shave off all of her hair as a sign of grief and mourning, and showing that it was a big loss to the whole tribe that his death was. And they would collect her hair and bless it and do a ceremony and thank that warrior for the life and the protections he gave to the tribe. And then they would distribute it to the warriors as a reminder. All those hairs represent the people of the tribe and collectively the whole tribe. And it was these warriors' jobs to take care of their people, just like it's my job as an officer to take care of my men. So that ties into the legacy here of Texas Parks and Wildlife's 30-year program of the Buffalo Soldiers. So I hope you come out and see us at one of our events, and I hope you explore all the parks of Texas and the national parks of the United States. No matter where you go, you are walking in the footsteps of some of these brave Buffalo Soldiers who are out here on the Texas frontier and beyond.